Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, ciao, bonjour, namaste, jumbo. Bienvenidos. My name is Jed Lee. Welcome to Reading with Your Kids. We are beaming out to you and the world with love from Meadville, the gem of Boston, Massachusetts, and we are so very thrilled that you are joining us. At Reading with Your Kids, our mission is simple but powerful, to bring families together through the shared magic of books and stories. In every episode, we sit down with fascinating folks who are creating books that open hearts and spark imagination. Want to help us grow our mission? Please tell all of your family and friends, your kids' teachers, even the crossing guard, that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network, and they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, Amazon Music, Podcast Addict, Audible, Player FM, YouTube. Wherever you find your favorite shows, you can find Reading with Your Kids. Really powerful interview coming up to you. VT Bidania is here to celebrate a year without home. And later in the show, Stacy Whitcomb is here to celebrate baby Munchkin. Hey, my friends, I have a super idea you are going to love. How about this weekend, turn your backyard cookout into a storybook celebration. Fire up the grill, crack open a few of your favorite picture books, and serve up Big Fork Brand's legendary bacon sausage. Made with nitrate-free bacon and premium pork, it's juicy, smoky, and unforgettable. Top it off with Big Fork's spicy Chicago fire sauce, and you've got a meal as bold as the characters in your favorite bedtime tale. Get 20% off your order using the promo code READ at bigforkbrands.com. That's bigforkbrands.com. Promo code READ to get 20% off, because nothing brings families together like great food, great books, and a whole lot of flavor. Big Fork Brands. Read, grill, repeat. Joining us out right now from a very cold and snowy state of Minnesota, our guest is going to warm up our hearts, celebrating her beautiful book. It's called A Year Without Home. It's the middle grade novel in verse from our guest, VT Bidania. Fawn, how are you?
Fine, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Delighted to have you on. Middle grade novels without a verse. I've been doing Reading with Your Kids since 2017, and I have to tell you, in the first 3-4 years of the show, I don't think we had anybody coming on celebrating middle grade novels in verse, and since that time, we've had a whole lot of authors coming on. It seems to be a really popular, very, very popular these days.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love middle grade novels in verse, and I visit a lot of schools, and I have heard from many teachers and media specialists that they're pretty popular with the kids too. Whether they're maybe students who want shorter looking books or even really advanced readers, they just really enjoy the verse novels. So yeah, it's a popular thing now.
Before we get into A Year Without Home, why do you think you mentioned, maybe kids are looking for a shorter book, or but what else do you think is resonating with kids with middle grade novels in verse?
It's hard for me to say exactly. I can tell you why I love them.
Okay.
I've just found them to be really emotionally powerful, even though they have fewer words than regular prose novels. And maybe the young readers like them because they seem shorter, but maybe they love the subject matter. I feel like there's so many varied ones. There are a lot of immigrant verse novels. There are also some sports verse novels. There's just such a wide variety of different types of novels in verse, and maybe they like the different subjects or they seem shorter. I mean, sometimes the word count is smaller than a prose novel, but then the book seems thicker because of the way it's laid out on the page. So, but still, I've just heard they like the white space. So, as I said, I like them because I think they're really emotional and powerful, and maybe the kids like them because the word count seems less, or because they just like maybe the different kind of subjects that are being covered.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. You mentioned the white space. That is one thing. My beautiful wife taught special needs kids for 34 years. And anytime we would get a book or anytime she would get a book, she would just thumb through the pages. And if there wasn't enough white space, nope.
Yeah.
Take it away. Take it away.
Yeah.
My kids aren't going to like it.
No, I understand. I mean, like I said, I visit a lot of schools and I always talk to the librarians. They always tell me, and these are some of our most popular books that are being checked out. And a lot of them are the verse novels. And they do mention that, the kids love it when they just like page through them and they seem a little shorter. But, like I said, even advanced readers enjoy them, I think.
Yeah. And now in a year without home, do you use different, styles of creating verse?
Well, it's free verse, so pretty much anything goes. There isn't a certain particular style that I keep up with for different parts of the book. I mean, some chapters, or I guess my editor calls them poems, are just maybe one long paragraph, and some are indented. Some have different stanzas. It's really since it's free verse, it's really kind of just like whatever I think would be best for that particular poem, what it's talking about.
You know, you mentioned that one long paragraph. For some reason, this horror flashed through my brain. I'm back. I'm a freshman in college, and I'm trying to read James Joyce, Self-Portrait of the Artist, or whatever. And the first sentence was like 30 pages long. And I'm like, I'm looking for a punctuation mark of any. And I gave up.
Well, these are a little different because they're line breaks. So,
right.
So yeah, it doesn't go all the way to the end of or to the other side of the page. They're short. It might be a long might look like a long paragraph, but some of those lines might have just like one word or two words or something.
Yeah. Tell us about A Year Without Home. What's the story we're going to experience when we read this book?
So it's, I guess they call it historical fiction because it takes place in the 1970s, which to me, that didn't seem historical, but I guess it is. It's about an 11-year-old Hmong girl named Gosheng and how she has to leave her country, leave Laos with her family after the Vietnam War when the communists take over the country. And it's no longer safe for them to stay there anymore. So then they have to escape from Laos. They get to Thailand and stay in the refugee camps there for refugees fleeing from the war. And then eventually they resettle in the U.S. And she spends the entire year just missing home, longing for home, and also trying to find her own voice and her own strength. And in the end, she finds it inside herself after that year. She finds hope and strength inside herself.
Yeah. I do remember, I am very old. And so I do remember the 70s. I do remember the refugees coming here. Tell us a little bit about the Hmong people, please.
Okay. So Hmong people, just a quick history lesson. Hmong people are an ethnic minority group from China. And in the 1800s, they migrated down to Southeast Asia. So they settled in countries like Vietnam, Thailand, and Laos. And I'm talking in particular about the Hmong people from Laos right now. Most of the Hmong people who live in the U.S. are Hmong people from Laos. Just to make that clear, they're not Hmong people from Vietnam or Thailand. And so during the Vietnam War, when the U.S. got involved, and they decided to fight in Laos, they asked the Hmong people to help them. And they promised them that if they helped them and they lost the war, then they could come to the U.S. and live in the U.S. And so they recruited a lot of Hmong people, a lot of Hmong soldiers to fight with the U.S. troops. And the soldiers were as young as 12 and up. And the only thing is that this operation was being run by the CIA. So it was called the Secret War. So while the Vietnam War was happening, there was also this war called the Secret War happening in Laos that not many people knew about. But the Hmong soldiers in Laos were being trained by the CIA and were basically allies to the U.S. They helped U.S. soldiers. They helped them whether it was on the Ho Chi Minh Trail, they helped downed helicopter pilots, they helped injured soldiers, they just did everything to help them. And then when the U.S. pulled out of the war, then they had to escape too, because then Hmong people were being persecuted by the communists who took over, because then they knew that they had fought against them. My father was a soldier in the war, but he actually did not fight for the CIA. He fought with the Laotian, the Royal Lao Army. And they were also fighting communists, but he also worked closely with the CIA and with Hmong soldiers that were fighting with the CIA and fighting the secret war too. So just to make that differentiation, because and I talk about that in the book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What's the reaction for kids who are reading this and maybe scratching their heads thinking, a secret war? How does a country fight a secret war? I don't understand.
Yeah, I mean, the book hasn't officially released yet, so I don't know the reaction of young people yet, but I have been hearing, from reviewers and mostly educators, and a lot of them have said, I didn't even know about this war. And I'm so glad that I learned about this piece of history. And that was part of the reason why I wanted to write the book as well, too, because I know that not a lot of people are familiar with this or are aware of the secret war and of the reason why Hmong people are in the U.S. They just know that suddenly there was this big influx of Hmong refugees coming here after the Vietnam War, and they don't know how or why we got here, why we came here. So I wanted people to understand that we were allies and we fought with the U.S. and we helped the U.S. And when the U.S. pulled out and lost the war, then we had no place to go and we had to leave. And that's how we got here.
Yeah. That's it's even now. I was familiar with the Secret War and the history, and I acknowledge that we lost that war, but it's kind of hard to say. Kind of admit it, like, oh, wow, that wasn't our nation's most shining moment.
No. And there were so many hundreds of thousands of people that were affected, and families and a lot of children. And yeah, there's so much loss on over there, and Americans that went over there too, people over there, and so many lives lost over that. And it's a really sad part of history, but I think it's a part of history that so many people in this country are not familiar with or know very little about. Regarding Hmong people, our story is not even really included in history textbooks, or in history lessons. I don't think people really know. Maybe now in Minnesota, Hmong people are becoming people are more aware of Hmong people here in Minnesota, the state of Minnesota, because it has a pretty big Hmong community. I think it has one of the biggest Hmong populations in the country now. I think it used to be California and then Minnesota and then Wisconsin. Now I think it might be Minnesota and then California second. But Minnesotans are pretty familiar with Hmong people because there's such a big community here. But as far as like the history and all those details, I don't think a lot of people know about what happened and how we were affected and how we lost, so many lives, and we lost our homes and all that, and how we became refugees. So I hope that this book can kind of, educate people about that. And even I know that there are a lot of Hmong people here who also don't know, especially the young people. Hmong people have been here for a long time now, 50 years. And so their generations, there are kids in school, Hmong kids who are second, third, fourth generation who have really don't have a clear understanding of what happened or how we got here. So it will be good for them to read this too and to just learn more about our history.
Yeah. So I think it's very, very important. I also love that this book is going to give kids an opportunity to kind of see what folks who are refugees have to go through, what it's like to spend time in a refugee camp, to not have a home.
Absolutely. I mean, unfortunately, right now, there's so many wars and conflicts still happening in the world, in every corner of the globe, some not being talked about. And many of the people being affected by all this are kids. And there are refugee children coming to the U.S., and I think a lot of the young people here, kids in school might, be friends with or have classmates or neighbors who are refugees. So it would be good for them to understand what that experience is like. And yeah, this is happening in real time. This isn't, while the book is historical fiction and tells a story of Hmong refugees from 50 years ago, unfortunately there are refugees right now as we speak. And so it would be good for the young people to read this experience and learn what it's like to be ripped away from your home and to lose your house, your backyard, your pet, everything that you love, and then just have to run for your life, and then be uncertain about where you're going next and what's coming up next.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I belong to an organization called Clowns Without Borders, and we send performers to refugee camps and disaster areas and whatnot. And I do think it's very important for us to understand that not only to be grateful for what we have and the stable homes we have, but also to have some empathy and hopefully be willing to reach out to help people who are, like, as you said, running for their lives.
Absolutely. Yes. I hope that, maybe if families read this book together or discuss, it after reading, maybe parents could ask their kids, what did you think how do you think the character felt? I mean, obviously the character talks about how she feels, but maybe like, what are your thoughts on what she went through? And maybe what do you think, how do you think you would feel if suddenly that had to happen to you or to us? I mean, at an age appropriate level, depending on how old the reader is, but, how do you think that might feel? How scary, do you think that might be? How sad would you be? And then also maybe talk to them about their peers, do you know anyone who had to go through that, and how do you think they might feel? And, I think it just, would bring, reading a book like this, reading stories like this, maybe will bring an awareness, and an understanding, and hopefully, build some empathy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's so very needed right now.
Mm-hmm.
How difficult was it for you to write this book?
It was difficult. I mean, for a couple of reasons. First of all, it was very emotional, because it's such a personal story. It's about my family, and halfway through writing it, I lost my dad. And so I was devastated, and then I remembered the book, and I just kind of dove right back in and just became obsessed, and I was like, I have to finish this book. And then of course I was kicking myself because I had so many questions that I couldn't ask him anymore. But, I just, in a way, working on it for the year after I lost him it helped me through my grieving process. Mm-hmm. So it was, I don't know how I could have gotten through that year if I didn't have the book to focus on. So it was emotional in that way, but it was also hard in the research wise, because I had to do a lot of research. This is historical fiction. I wanted to make sure I could get it as accurate as I could, and that was difficult. I mean, I asked my brother and sister a lot of questions. If you've read the book, then you'll know they're central to the story. I just asked them a ton of questions, like, what was our house like? What were the mountains like? How was it going to school? What was traveling to the city like? What about our escape? How did you feel? Life in the refugee camps, all that. I asked them a ton of questions. And then I asked, I interviewed my parents and also older relatives who could remember more at the time of that time. Of course, unfortunately, a lot of people nowadays that could remember those things. Like nowadays, they can't really remember anymore because of their age. I did a lot of online research. I read a lot of news and reports and whatever I could find. I watched videos and documentaries. And then 2 years ago, I was lucky enough to finally go back to Laos and visit. It was my first time back since I was a baby, since we left. So it was such a wonderful experience. It was fantastic. And I think Laos is the most beautiful country in the world. I saw so much and I learned so much. And so I just used all of that to, as my research, and tried to create the story based on all that, all my notes and all that. And then, but the truth is, to answer your question, that research was hard because, first of all, for the war, there's so little information about it.
Sure.
And it was a secret war. It was a war being run by the CIA. So it's not like details, and records of that are, readily available to the public. And also for Laos is a developing country, and it's also a communist country. So it's not like historical or accurate historical records about that time are available to the public, and I could just go look them up, so everything I just had to like try to figure out and ask a lot of questions, and for the do the best with what information I had, and then for the rest I just had to use my imagination. So that kind of, those details kind of, were a little difficult to make sure they were accurate, and then the fact that it was such an emotional time, that those two things made it difficult writing it. But in the end, I mean, I finished it, and I'm really proud of what I wrote, considering everything that I went through.
Sure. Yeah. Tell me, writing this book, did it change you at all?
So much. I mean, I have a much better, clearer understanding of what my family went through. I mean, growing up and throughout childhood, I always heard people talk about it. My family, relatives, you always hear stories and snippets of stories here and there about, life in the camps, what we did at that refugee camp, what we did at this one, how we lived. I always heard stories about our house on the hill in the mountains. I always heard these little stories. So I felt like, yeah, I know what happened because I heard them. And I felt like I had these like fuzzy memories, but I think they weren't really memories. They were just things that my imagination, things that I made up because I heard the story so many times. But writing this book, I had to like really sit down and try to put everything in chronological order, talking to my older brother and sister, talking to, hearing from older relatives, and just like putting this all together, and then putting it, in this narrative in the book. I really saw what we went through, leading from the days leading up into our escape, our actual escape, what we went through when we had to leave, and then life in the camps, and then leading all the way up to when we came to the U.S. By the time we came to the U.S., then I was older, so then I started to remember. So I feel like the point in my life from when we came to the U.S., that I can remember. But everything before that was just like fuzzy and, like a dream. But now, working on the book, now I have a much better understanding. And it changed me in that now I feel like it relived everything that we went through. And it made me feel, it was bittersweet. It made me feel closer and better, but it was also really sad. Yeah,
I bet. I noticed on your website that you wrote the first children's picture book with Hmong characters. How did that feel?
Okay. Well, it's actually chapter books. I think there might be some it's okay. There might be some picture books out there already with Hmong characters, but this is a chapter book series. It's an early reader series, and I worked in a K-5 school, so I just was seeing how much kids love chapter book series. They love checking them out in the library because it's kind of like a continuation, of characters that they like. It's just like watching something cartoons on TV. I don't know. Do kids still watch that? I don't know. But you kind of seeing the same familiar characters. So I saw that they were so popular in the schools, and I loved reading them. So then I was thinking I wanted to try and write that. So that's what Astrid and Apollo, my first chapter book series, is about. It's about a twin brother and sister who are Hmong American. They're Astrid and Apollo Lee. They're 8-year-old third graders. And it's just about like their daily adventures, like going to school, going to Hmong New Year, doing homework, things like that. And I have 18 books out, and I'm excited to announce that I have a spin-off coming in January too, and it's called Extraordinary Eliana, and it stars their little sister Eliana. Because they have a little sister, and in the series she was always kind of like the annoying little sister, the babysitter who was always like bugging them, and she became popular with the kids. I know whenever I did school visits, kids would always be like, "Can we hear more about Eliana? Like she's so naughty, but we like her. And are you ever gonna do, a book just about her?" And so I'd heard that, and I kind of had that idea in my head too, that someday it'd be neat to write a companion series to Astrid and Apollo that would star Eliana and just focus on her. And when I pitched it to my editor, my publisher, they said yes. So I've been working on that as well, and that's coming out in January too. So yes, it's a chapter book series about a Hmong family. And you asked how it feels. I mean, it was really exciting for me. I was really really so proud of how it's turned out, and so glad too that it's become really popular with the kids in the schools, and it doesn't matter their background, whether they're Hmong or not. Kids just like reading it. My goal in writing this series was to, of course, to have some Hmong representation, but I also wanted to show happy stories of Hmong people, because for a long time, there was just so little inclusion of Hmong people in the media. Hmong people aren't really included in the Asian American experience. I think for a long time, most people weren't even aware of Hmong people until maybe Suni Lee won the gold medal. And then people were like, oh, she's Hmong, what's Hmong? And then, other than the people who live in states that have big Hmong communities like Wisconsin, Minnesota and California, maybe other states might not really know Hmong people. So, but the little bit of inclusion or representation that I did see about Hmong people, it was usually always just the kind of same stereotypical struggling refugees facing hardships, suffering, not being able to assimilate, all that. And while many Hmong people did face so many hardships during the war, after the war, in the camps, and when they first resettled in the U.S., there's still a lot of Hmong people who are really happy. And we never saw that in any of the representation. And so I wanted to make sure that, I wanted to write a book that would show happy stories. I always felt like if other kids, like white kids and kids of other backgrounds, got to have these happy, fun stories, why couldn't Hmong kids? Why do Hmong kids always have to be like, I'm just a sad refugee, suffering? And so, and also nowadays in the schools and everywhere in the community, there are so many young Hmong people, kids, who are so far removed from the war experience by now. They're third or fourth generation. They know very little about it, and they're kind of disconnected from that. But if that's all they ever see, that kind of portrayal or representation of themselves constantly, just the sad refugee all the time, I just don't think that that's, healthy or fair. And I wanted Hmong kids to be able to see themselves as in happy stories, but also as heroes of their own stories, just like they got to see their peers as heroes. I wanted them to be. So I wanted to make sure that Aster and Apollo would show Hmong kids just in happy stories, like regular stories where they go to school, they have friends, they have to do homework. They don't have to, the stakes aren't high. They don't have to like save the world, but they do have to like figure out, oh no, what am I going to do my book report on? Or, how am I going to get my giant geography project to school? That's like the things that stress them out, or going to the Hmong New Year and, no spoilers, but they get lost. How will they find their way back? Those kinds of stories and experiences I wanted to write about. So I wanted happy stories, happy representation. And I think I've achieved that, because I get that feedback a lot. A lot of people, Hmong parents will come up to me at events and just say, we're so glad that the kids can just see themselves in these regular stories, and I think a lot of kids are like really proud, like they make connections, like I'm Hmong, my family does that too, but it's not just that stereotypical sad portrayal.
Right. Yeah, I agree. We want people to be empathetic, but at the same time, we don't want kids to perpetually look at a group of people as victims.
Yes, absolutely.
We should tell everybody where they can go to find out more about A Year Without Home and your series and all the great books that you've created.
Absolutely. You can find out all about that on my website, which is www.vtbidania.com. That's VT Bidania. And just to clarify, Bidania is not a Hmong name. That's my husband's last name, and it's Spanish because he's Filipino. But my Hmong last name is Tao. But I use my initials, VT, Vong, Tao, and then Bidania's last name. So VT, Bidania. If you go to my website, you can learn all about my books.
We've had a great time. We've learned so much. And what a wonderful patchwork. Your family, Filipino, Hmong, and Minnesota, and snow. It's great. I love it. We've had a great time speaking to the author of A Year Without Home. It's a new middle grade novel in verse from our guest, VT Bidania. Hey, Vong, thanks so much for being on Reading with Your Kids.
You're welcome, and thank you for inviting me. It's so fun.
Hey, my friends, one of my favorite parts of the day is story time. There's just something magical about snuggling up with your kids, opening a great book, and escaping into an adventure together. And let me tell you, that moment becomes even more magical when you're curled up in the softest, coziest bedding you've ever felt. That's why I'm so excited that CozyEarth.com is supporting reading with your kids. Their bamboo sheets, comforters, and pajamas are unbelievably soft, naturally breathable, and temperature regulating, which means no more sweaty nights or chilly toes. Right now, Cozy Earth is offering Reading with Your Kids listeners an unbelievable and exclusive 41% off their entire site. That's right, you heard me right, 41% off. So go ahead, create your own cozy reading nook, wrap yourself and your kids up in something comfy, grab your favorite bedtime book, and turn story time into the best part of your day. Head on over to CozyEarth.com and use the promo code READ at checkout to save 41%. That's CozyEarth.com, promo code READ. Join us right now from the Chicagoland area of Illinois. Our guest is here today to celebrate her new picture book. It's called Baby Munchkin. Please welcome to the show, Stacy Whitcomb. Stacy, how are you?
I'm good. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm excited to have you on. Stacy is an English teacher in a high school and is joining us. So if a bell rings or something like that, it's no worries, just they're changing classes. Tell us, what's it like being a picture book author and a high school English teacher?
Well, it's definitely a busy schedule. And I'm also a mom to 3 kids, too. So very, very busy. But I have always wanted to be an author since I was in 4th grade. It is something that I love to read. And I was like, I want to create something that, kids would love to read as well. And so when I got older, right, and decided that I wanted to teach English, and have book talks with kids and teach kids how to write, I was like, I'm going to also write on the side. And so I obviously have my day job, and then I'm working on getting Baby Munchkin out there in the world and going to little school visits and meeting kids who have been enjoying my book as well. So it's a very fun but busy time.
Yeah, I bet. That marketing part of it, that's something that, and it's not just indie and self-published authors. I'm oftentimes surprised when, traditionally published authors go, I don't have time to market my book and to do this and that. It's like, people aren't going to find it unless you get out there. There are thousands. This blows people away. There are literally thousands of books published every single month.
I can believe it.
In order to, get some attention, you need to get out there and make some noise. And we're glad that you're making noise about Baby Munchkin. Tell me about Baby Munchkin. Who are we going to meet in this show, book?
So Baby Munchkin is about a 3-year-old girl who's told that she's going to be a big sister, and she's really excited. But then she gets worried because she's worried that her parents are not going to pick a good name for the baby. And so she dreams up this name, Baby Munchkin, and is literally adamant that baby gets the name until the last page of the book. Spoiler alert, the baby is not named Baby Munchkin. The parents pick their own name. But throughout the book, it's fun because as I thought of this idea, and I was like, there's not a lot of books out there about babies' names, and giving a voice to the sibling, of having that conversation about what a baby's name is. A lot of it's all about how to be a big sister, how to be a big brother. And so this one takes us through different name options until obviously one is settled, and she realizes that she's going to love her baby sister no matter what her name is.
Yeah, I love it. It's interesting. I was preparing for this interview and talking to you. I'm reminded of my son when we were waiting for my daughter to enter into the world. And when she came in, we named her Alejandra, and he couldn't quite get that, so it was Hannah. He called her Hannah, which everybody picked up on for a long time. And it's interesting. I remember before my daughter was able to speak, my son couldn't figure it out. Why can't this person? And then he saw Dopey, that the cartoon character Dopey didn't have any teeth and he didn't speak, and my daughter didn't have any teeth. And so my son is like, oh, Dopey had no teeth. Hannah had no teeth. No, he can't talk. And it was just crazy. And I'm just babbling here because I'm enjoying thinking back to that time in my life when I had 2 infants.
Yeah, well, and it's funny because like I'm talking to more people now that the book is out, they're like, oh my gosh, my daughter, wanted to name the baby this or that, or someone told me that their son was like, my brother's name's going to be Batman. And at one of the school, it was actually my son's school, all these kids were raising their hand. I want to name my baby sister this, and I want to do that. And they're like, and my parents didn't pick it, So I was like, okay, there's a lot more kids out there that, that do have these names in mind. And so I just think it really connects to a lot of families who are going through this stage of life.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell me, was it your kids that inspired this book?
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like I said, I've always wanted to write, and I had some different ideas that I was jotting down, and I thought I was going to go one way or the other. And then I was pregnant with my middle one, who's a girl, and my oldest one obviously is a girl as well. And when I was pregnant with her, she actually wanted to name her baby Munchkin. So she's the one who gave me this idea. And I must say I don't remember exactly where baby Munchkin, where she thought of it. The only thing I can think of is that we were watching Full House at the time, and Uncle Jesse calls Michelle Munchkin. And so I think she liked that and was like, oh, I'm just going to, add baby to it. And so I was like, this would be such a cute children's book. And it just kind of came naturally to me. Where other times I'd think of something maybe a little harder to write, this one just naturally came out. And I was like, this is going to work.
Yeah, being from Boston, I figured that you had just come out of a Dunkin' Donuts with the Boston Munchkin.
Right? We love Munchkin donuts too.
Tell me, what was it like to finally have that book, that dream come true, to have that book in your hand?
It was awesome. I mean, I had sent query letters to agents and publishers for 8 years, and it wasn't until I found Stacy Padula at Briley and Baxter that she was like, this is super cute. We've got to get this out there. And I was just like, wow, it just became so surreal. And that whole process then took, a good year to get it illustrated and to go through the whole process of getting it put together. But it was just so exciting when the book finally got there. It was awesome, especially to share it with my kids too, because it's they were brought to life on the pages. And then I feel bad because I wrote it before I had my son, and now he's like, where am I? So I told him, I'm working on a sequel for you, buddy. We'll get you in one of these books. So it was super exciting, and it's definitely been awesome to share it with people.
Yeah. Now, did the girls give your son a name before he debuted?
So they joked around that they were just going to call him Munchkin Boy just because it was, based off of this. But we kind of so his name is Tate. And so that name kind of came out as an idea early, and my oldest one really liked that one. So then when we joke around oh, what are we going to name him Munchkin Boy since you wanted to be Baby Munchkin? She's like, no, his name is Tate. So it didn't actually they didn't come up with a super cute nickname for him because they both really liked that name pretty early.
He's lucky he's not Tater Tot.
Oh, well, we do call him that sometimes. It's a cute, that's a cute nickname.
You mentioned that you read the story in your daughter's class, I think you said.
Yeah, I read it in my daughter's class last year when she was 4th grade. And then I had a whole library, meeting with all the 1st graders and kindergartners actually at their school too. Mm-hmm. And it was awesome. The school bought every kindergartner and 1st grade a copy, and I got to sign them all for them, and they were super excited.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell me, how different was it from being in front of a room full of high schoolers to being in front of a school of elementary school kids? Yeah.
Talk about a difference, right? Obviously they both are so different, but they both have their perks on both ends of the spectrum there. But they were just so cute because they they want to share everything. That's what I learned about the kindergartners and first graders. All their hands were up. They wanted to tell me, what they wanted to name their sibling, or one of them was just like, I just really need to tell you that I have a dog. And I was like, that is awesome. I'm like, I love dogs, and there's a dog in this book, they were so excited that I was there. And then when they found out that, this is Tate's mom, then it was like, oh my goodness. And then anytime they see me in the school now, they'll like point and they're like, that's the lady with the book. So yeah, it's just so, high schoolers don't always necessarily want to share all their ideas all the time. So yeah, going from that classroom to the classroom with all the kindergartners, first graders was like, whoa, they were very chatty, but I was so excited how excited they were about my book being there. And then they all got their own copy, and that just sent them up, so excited, clapping, jumping up and down. They were so excited.
Now, tell me, the high school kids, are they impressed that their teacher is a published children's author?
So, they are. There's some of them, of course, are just like, oh, okay, but I do teach a dual credit composition course where, they are pretty serious about writing. And so when I tell them, I'm like, all right, this is something that I have always really wanted to do, and it's a pretty big accomplishment. And they're like, oh, this is pretty cool. And some of them have asked to read it. And I'm like, definitely not at their reading level, but they do appreciate it and have enjoyed reading it too.
Yeah. As an English teacher, you're probably giving kids assignments to write on this or that. What's the challenge is it especially challenging for high school kids to write concisely? We have to, as a children's author, picture book author, you have to tell the story in 500 words or so. Right. That's not a lot of words. Do high school kids find that challenging?
So depending on the assignment, I would definitely say yes. One that comes to mind is their college essay, because in that writing course, right, one of our first essays senior year, right, in the fall, is to write the college essay. And a lot of them are not very long, right? 300 to 500 words. And yes, sometimes that can be a big challenge. So we usually, and I tell them, I'm like, this is the same thing I did with the book, right? You start with one draft, you go through and you edit and you get rid of the clutter, right? Get rid of the words that you don't need, that, oh, this is saying the same thing, or, a little redundancy, right? And so that has been fun. And I have used, like some shorter books, right? Some children's books, or like even kids' poems, right? To show them like, hey, look at how you could take this, or we've added words to poems, and then been like, what do you think you could get rid of? And they realize like, whoa, you can actually condense a lot, basically shorten up a lot of things, to make it just a lot shorter than it needs to be.
Yeah. Yeah. What advice would you have, since you're in the business of offering advice to aspiring or reluctant authors, what advice would you have for any aspiring author that might be listening?
I would say just to never give up, because it is a business, right, where you're going to get a lot of rejection. Mm-hmm. And, if you feel really passionately about your book, right, or whatever it is that you've written, right, just to keep sending those letters, to keep getting the word out, because you might get your yes, right? Just like I did. And again, there's going to still be all these hurdles, right? Like you said, the market is so big. There's so many children's books out there, but to keep talking about it, to keep sharing it with other people, because, then it'll fall into the right hands.
Yeah. Talk about big. People really don't understand how big the children's book industry is. I attended the International Children's Book Festival in Bologna, Italy last year. Wow. And that convention filled 5 huge convention halls over in Bologna, Italy. And it was just amazing. I mean, the Penguin Random House booth alone was about a city block in size. It's just incredible.
That is awesome.
Yeah, yeah. Tell me, as a high school teacher, you're dealing with young people who are inundated with media, social media. And we've talked a lot about social media and helping our kids become media literate. What would you say is the biggest challenge for young people, especially young high school kids and middle school kids getting ready to go to high school? What's the biggest challenge that they're facing these days?
I would say it's that they need to put their phones away, like while they're in the classroom, which is something that we have to start collecting their phones and they get put in like a numbered slot because they just get way too distracted.
Right.
Another thing that we do offer, and it's a senior elective course, actually one that I'm teaching right now, is it's a media course where you learn how to be media literate. You look at commercials, you look at, now we're looking at different types of social media and stuff, right? How are these ads coming at you and what are they wanting you to think, believe, right? So they go through that process of learning about the media so that they know how to understand it.
Yeah. Well, I think helping our kids become media literate is an absolutely essential role for parents. When my daughter was in middle school, she's now a very successful young woman. When she was in middle school, I was taking a media literacy class so I could help them. At that time, it was estimated that kids in middle school were exposed to about maybe 3,000 media messages a day. And this is before social media. I'm guessing that number has exploded. Any
sure.
idea of how many media messages kids are exposed to every day?
I don't know if it's increased from that, but it's obviously a lot just because they're getting it from their phones. They're getting it. They're on computers now too, or iPads at most schools, right? So they're getting it through TV. There are so many different spots. So that has to be pretty accurate, if not higher.
Yeah. No, I'm guessing 5 to 10 times
right.
higher. Yeah. Because this is before social media.
Oh my gosh. And I don't know that exact data.
Yeah. What's the biggest lesson you want kids to take away from your media course that we might be able to share with our kids?
Again, it's that what message is being sent? What are you supposed to be doing with that message? If they're trying to manipulate you in some way, right? Like all the advertising technique terms they go through. If you're not wanting to do that, right? Knowing exactly how they're trying to manipulate the viewer. And then we also, we do that marketing part of it too, but then we also do film and, that, which is the really fun part of that course, short films, feature films, right? And how you can analyze not only, right, in English, of course, we analyze books, literature, all that stuff, right? But how you can take, hey, here's a film and it's the same type of analysis, right? Mm-hmm. We try to do a lot of that as well.
Yeah. I'm guessing that you've had maybe once or twice kids have handed in a paper, an assignment that you look at and you say, looks like that might be written by ChatGPT.
Mm-hmm. That's a big problem right now.
Is it? Yeah. Talk a little bit about that, please.
Yeah. So we have an AI checker. It's called turnitin.com, and it basically scans the essay, and it'll say if it thinks it's AI or if it thinks it's another student work. Because every time an essay gets scanned through there, it keeps it in the system. So It will pop up if they're using someone else's essay. But yeah, ChatGPT, you can generally tell, especially like at the freshman, sophomore level, if it's an actual kid's writing or if it sounds like it's a computer, it generally is pretty obvious. But we did get a new thing this year too, where we can kind of lock down certain browsers on their computers as well. So like ChatGPT can't be an option for them to even open when they're typing an essay and that has helped a lot this year. Yeah. So fingers crossed it continues to improve because a lot of them just turn right to that, which I'm curious too if that's becoming an issue in the children's book market. If people are just tossing something into ChatGPT, right, and trying to submit it and it's not even their own work. Like plagiarism is a huge problem that we try to get these kids to realize, is an issue.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the statute of limitations has run out on this, but Stacy, at one point when I was in high school, I wasn't the greatest student in high school, but I did really well in I think it was my junior year history class, and my essays were really good. And I remember getting a particular essay. I got an A on it, and one one of my teammates on the soccer team was taking the same class. It was a different period, but same teacher, same class. And he said, "Hey, can I look at your paper? Because you got an A on it. I just want to look at it." And I said, "Sure." And I handed him the paper that I had written out, and he didn't copy. He just cut my name off the top and pasted it onto a piece of colored construction paper and turned it in. And he got a B- because it was late.
Yeah, that still happens today, even in the Google Doc world, where they'll just like delete a name. And I'm like, I've read this already, and I know this is not yours. So they still do try to pull that as well.
Yeah. So you mentioned that your son wants a book. Do you have one in the works?
So I do actually, yeah. So I'm kind of envisioning Baby Munchkin either just having a sequel or maybe even a trilogy, like one in between where the girls, find out about him. And we did a gender reveal with him. So like maybe that could be kind of a fun story. And then the one after it then would be him. Actually, I've actually written this third one already. And it was about my son had a very, very strong bond with the dog that is in Baby Munchkin. He was a shepherd mix. And I mean, all three of them did, but him especially. Unfortunately, our dog passed away when he was 3 years old. Mm-hmm. But they were so bonded, and he literally barked before he spoke because he was so obsessed with our dog. And that is what it's kind of about, like how he barks. He thought he was a dog, and he followed the dog around everywhere. And so it's a story about the two of them together. Oh, and so right now it's just, again, in the beginning stages of I need to get it out there and try to find a home for it. But my illustrator did draw a picture of him. Like, she already had the dog, right? But put him and the dog together, and we framed it and put it in his room. So he feels a little left out that he's not in this book. So I'm hoping to get that one out there sometime soon. And I also have an idea for a Christmas story, actually.
Oh, excellent.
So I'm in the writing process with that one.
Well, we know that there's going to be a school bell ringing in just a few moments. So let's tell everybody where they can go to find out more about Baby Munchkin and find out more about you.
So I have a website. It's www.authorstacyswhitcomb.com. And it has links to Amazon to purchase Baby Munchkin, and then bookshop.org, which is a great one because then the money goes to independent bookshops versus, obviously, big Amazon. I believe it's also at walmart.com and a few others. But yeah, you can find more information about me on there. You can find out about Baby Munchkin, good reviews on Amazon from families that are enjoying. And also one perk about my publisher, Briley & Baxter, is that every month they give 10% of their profits to animal shelters. Oh. So any Briley & Baxter books that people purchase go to helping pets that are in need of, obviously, homes and, food, shelter, everything.
That's wonderful. We've had a great time speaking to the author of Baby Munchkin. It's a brand new picture book from our guest, Stacy Whitcomb. Stacy, thanks for being on Reading with Your Kids.
Thank you so much for having me.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the show. If this episode made you smile or gave you something to think about, and I think VT and Stacy, they gave you something to think about, please consider sharing a link to the show with someone you love. Also, please consider leaving a 5-star review and subscribing to the show wherever you find your favorite shows. Want to thank the folks who connect with us on social media, facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, @readingwithyourkids, on Instagram, @JedleyMagic, on X. Our YouTube channel, youtube.com/readingwithyourkids. And our website is readingwithyourkids.com. Want to thank our sponsors. When you use our promo code READ, you get a great deal. Number one, you get a fantastic deal. And we might earn a small commission, and that really helps out. Want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful, starting with our guest, VT Bidania. Be sure to check out A Year Without Home. Also want to thank Stacy Whitcomb. Please be sure to check out Baby Munchkin. I want to thank my team, Fatima Khan, Chris Doherty. I want to thank my beautiful wife, for all the support she gives me. And man, oh man, she has given me so much support. Mary, she has put up with me for over 35 years. Can you believe that? She's wonderful, and I am so, so blessed. I'm also very, very blessed to be able to thank you for joining us. You are amazing. You're working really, really hard. You're spending time with your kids, and that is helping to create a safer, kinder, more empathetic, and loving world. And you do that every single time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.